now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studios, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Phillips, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey, yeah, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers coming to you from the Huntsville Attic, as always. And tonight we're going to be talking about war. What is it good for? And with me, as always, is my awesome friend, awesome cohort, Rockin' Robbie Phillips.
Yes, that's me. Here. And war. Yeah, what is it good for? Apparently,
Films.
good films.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest films in the history of cinema have, in fact, been war films.
I concur.
So we, the Pop Culture Philosophers, have decided to discuss war movies tonight for our 5th episode. With us tonight, longtime friend, first-time caller, James Lineback, everybody.
Hello. Long-time listener, guys.
Yes.
Good to be on the air with you guys here.
It's always good to have you in the Huntsville Attic, sir.
His beard brings something that most listeners, they can't consume it or they can't feel it over the air, but his beard brings a presence that most, when we have other people on the show.
It brings a warmth to the room.
It does. That's what I was looking for, a warmth.
Yeah, like a fatherly figure.
Yes.
Or something like that.
I sometimes do refer to James as daddy. So we're talking about war. And again, a lot of times when we cover topics, we'll talk about comics, talk about, pop culture, etc. But we're sticking to war and cinema because in and of itself, it's quite a show. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. And I guess we'll get it started. So what is the appeal of war movies? That's my first question. Appeal of war movies. Why are they so popular?
I personally feel that the appeal and the attraction of war movies is allowing us, the normal man and woman, to be able to experience war without actually having to go into war. And also to as a entire group, help us explain our feelings about the war that's in the movie.
Ah, very good answer.
Robbie?
I would say pretty much what James just said. It's a struggle to understand what it's like without the danger of actually being there. It's a way to experience it without dying, without being in danger of losing your life. It's also a way to kind of I think some people are brain lazy, so they think that watching some war movie is like a history lesson to them. Now, many war movies are completely inaccurate.
Very inaccurate.
Yeah, very.
Yes.
And so you shouldn't do that. You should actually study the real things. But I like the way you said, to struggle to understand why, and how we feel about it, And I think there's also a big part of the people that are doing it in tribute to the people. A lot of these movies present these people as heroes or victims, but it's all a tribute to the actual soldiers who've gone over there. And I also just honestly think some people like explosions and gunfights.
There's also that.
Yeah.
Loud explosions, everything in flames.
Oh, totally. What about you, John?
I was going to say people like to watch conflict. I mean, people will stand around when people are getting a fist fight. People like to watch conflict.
Oh, yeah.
So they're drawn to war movies. And then there's a lot of good war movies because war is a great backdrop. There's a lot of great films that have these great stories that take place during a wartime. So a lot of directors draw from that. And a lot of writers draw from that. But it just happens to be a shitload of great war films out there.
Absolutely. We touched a little bit on this. It's obviously the themes of the war movies that we like, that appeal to the mass audience. What are some of those themes, James?
Well, there's the most basic, simple one, which is good versus evil. Which, is one of the big draws is because, there's this line you can draw easily in a lot of these movies. Like, yep, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys.
Oh, yeah. Especially war movies where it's the U.S. versus, like World War II especially.
Germany,
yeah.
Russia in the 50s,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the main, simplest version of everything is, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy.
Absolutely. John, what do you think?
100% agree. My notes actually specifically say good versus evil, which is exactly what he said. And people do they go to see the good guy win to root for the good guy. And again, you're going to have war films where the good guy or the person that in your eyes the good guy doesn't always come out on top.
Yeah.
So that's That's life.
You know, I'd also say that a lot of the war movies, though, their theme is not necessarily so cut and dry, good and evil. Like, think of the Vietnam.
Yeah, specifically
movies.
Vietnam. Yeah, there's not a clear.
And so I think the good and evil is absolutely right there. I think another theme that resonates with the audience is sacrifice. You know, the fact that, you know, a lot of great war movies deal with death during war, and they show the brutality of war. And it's almost like a tribute to the soldiers' sacrifices. You know, like the normal person doesn't really want to go do that.
Right. I mean, a lot of movies also have to deal with, you know, the normal guy and his journey to become a hero.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
this is just regular people.
A lot of them, they take you, you know, from enlistment point through training, you know.
Oh, yeah, like Full Metal Jacket,
Right.
you know? Yeah, so I would definitely say that, and I think it makes people feel like they're giving support by kind of experiencing it through film in a way.
So, and I guess this question I'll start with Robbie. What do you look for in a war movie?
I'm looking for the human element. I'm looking for an exploration on what war does to its soldiers and to its victims. You know, I want to put a face to it, because especially historical wars and even things that are like thousands of years ago, like to us, it's just a story. But what I want to see in a good war movie is to put a face to it, to put some emotion there, to make me feel like these were real people going through a real trial. And I just that's what I want, is I want to put a face to just something that's otherwise just a story that you read in the history books.
Yeah, you can relate to a real person as opposed to things you've heard or
Yeah,
things
this
you've
isn't
read.
just a list of facts of this person won this battle on this day, but the actual people that had to fight that battle.
Yeah, where'd they come from? Did they have a family?
Yeah.
You become compassionate.
How did
for
they
these
feel
people.
about this
Yeah.
war? How did they feel about
So
being
you
forced
really
to
want to
fight?
be embedded with the...
I want to know what it's like. Yeah. I want you to explore the experience of what war does to its soldiers and its victims, because all the soldiers of war are victims of war.
James?
I mean, a lot of things like Robbie said, and if I'm also, you know, in it for action, a lot of times I really do need the giant kick explosions.
Well, that never hurts, right?
You know, I mean, even if it's just to kind of to wake you up and actually get into the moment of what's really happening in the scene in the war movie, you know,
Oh yeah.
like the sudden urgency of, you know, that kind of thing.
Like it's real.
Yeah.
It's happening. I think, you know, like Saving Private Ryan does such a good job of that. Like
Yeah.
it's a good movie and it shows you the human face of war, but it also does have it's very grotesque almost, you know,
Oh, yeah.
scenes. But they're not doing it to be exploitative. They're doing it to be like, this is what it's like
Yeah.
when bodies are being blown apart around you. And what does that do to a person? John, what do you look for?
I'm gonna say again the same thing. I want a good story. I want something that I want to care about the characters that keeps me interested to the entire movie. But it does help if it's based in World War II. When it comes to that, I just enjoy World War II movies more than based in other wars, and we'll get a little more into why later on, because I think we're gonna go into more detail about different types of war. But I love World War II movies.
All right, I got a question then, guys. We've been talking a lot about the themes and what we'd like to see in war movies, but so what's more important, the action and the effects, or the story and the acting? James?
I do have to say the story and acting, because I mean, some of the war movies I like best don't really have as much explosions as sometimes you want.
Okay.
But
yeah.
when they have fleshed out characters and someone that you're really attached to and you want to see through the end of this ordeal, that's the best thing.
Absolutely. John, would you agree? Disagree?
I disagree. I don't know what the fuck it. No, I agree. I agree. I do want special effects. And again, you can do a war piece having minimal effects. Just have if you do have a tank, I want the tank to be accurate for that time period. You know, the details to be there. But you don't have to have big explosions. There are plenty of war movies that have big explosions but are shitty films because that was their focus. Michael Bay films. But again, the story, because you want something that's you want to be involved with it. So
Oh, yeah.
I'll take that. Again, I would like special effects, but story first and foremost.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with you. You know, special effects are nice, and it's a good like icing on the cake. But the cake itself is the story. It is the acting. It's the characters. You know, it's the themes. It's the message it conveys. It's how it makes you feel. It's the reaction that it gets from you. But look at just some of the great films of the past. You know, they didn't have giant like explosions and big special effects. Things like All Quiet on the Western Front. You know, Sergeant York. Those were just good stories, good characters, great performances. So obviously, I think that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
At least for us, anyway. There may be people who differ, and there's some fun
wrong.
films. Yeah, they're wrong. Their opinion is wrong. There's some fun films out there, but if you're going to take war serious, and especially being a history piece, you've got to focus on the story, I think, and then the special effects. We'll start with James. What's a real war movie to you, James? Like, what's real? Like, what have you seen like this? It
just seems the most real.
Yeah, which movie have you seen that seems realistic to you? You watch that and you left and be like, holy shit.
One of my favorite is actually Jarhead.
Ah.
Because even though it doesn't have as much action as many movies, it's a very real movie about that war.
Yeah.
I had a friend in college who had been a Marine. He's like, yeah, that's dead on. That's exactly how it is. Even with even the part where the guy gets the videotape from his wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, yeah, that is definitely the kind of shit that happens to you.
You know, I would agree with James, like Jarhead, to me. Like, especially, I mean, I don't know what it was really like to be over there in any of these wars.
No.
But Jarhead, from what I've read and from what I've listened to, like, it seems like it's a very accurate portrayal of what it was like in the first Gulf War, where they really didn't know why they were there, what was going on. I mean, Three Kings is a movie about that time too. You remember there's that awesome part in there where like they don't even know if the war's over.
Like, are we still shooting?
Yeah, like I don't know what's going on, and just seeing the oil fields burn, it's such a beautiful movie in pieces. And I think it really deals with the psychology of it. It just seems real. It just seems like war, especially in that one, would just be a lot of like waiting around, like getting full geared up and just kind of waiting to know what was going to happen because you didn't really even know because you grew up with like Vietnam and World War II movies.
Yeah,
and so you're going off to war and you're just like, whoa, what's going on? So I don't know. I'd agree with James. Jarhead for me. What about you?
I would say Jarhead's up there. I would probably say Black Hawk Down.
Oh yeah.
That's another. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a great film. And if you watch like footage of the Battle of Mogadishu, like it looks like it's stuff from like on set of Black Hawk Down. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, but they seem to have gone out of their way to be as close, be as realistic as possible. Is it Ridley Scott, I believe, was
Ridley Scott
the director.
directed that. Yeah.
So and enjoyed the film, but it's parts of it's heart wrenching, but it's there. It's definitely something too if you get a chance to see like in surround sound on Blu-ray. Magnificent surround sound on Blu-ray.
Black Hawk Down's really good, and it's got a great cast that plays some fantastic characters.
Yeah.
So I want to know right now, John, what's your favorite movie like characters from war films? What are your favorite war film movie characters?
I kind of like you always have the good-hearted like platoon leader who like maybe he's a teacher, or maybe he's a family man. He kind of got thrust into it, but he's a good leader. There's usually that character. One comes to mind is Tom Hanks' character in Saving Private Ryan, and then Winners from the Band of Brothers series, which I know is not a film, but it's HBO when they were done is almost
it's
independent
very cinematic
films.
though, right?
Yeah, very cinematic, and Winners is just such a great character. So that there is that character, but that helps you. Not only is he a great leader, but he also is a person you can relate to and you feel for him. So I love that character. In most movies, you always have a character like that, and I like that.
James, what about you?
I have to go with Josie Wales from The Outlaw Josie Wales.
Oh, interesting.
Civil War. It's it takes place right as the war is ending, and I mean you have this character that, even though yes he is for the rebels there, he's in it for him is for the right reason. It's because Union Army soldiers came through and killed his family, burned down his farm, left him for dead. It's a big revenge story, but then he doesn't really necessarily get the revenge that he wants on them, but even better, he just gets to go off and actually live his life.
I think we need to write a revenge movie called The Right Reasons, if that's not already been done.
We should look into this.
Absolutely. I really like you mentioned Captain John Miller from Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks. That's a really good one. Hiltz, the Steve McQueen character from Great Escape. That character's pretty BA. But I really like Sergeant Sefton from Stalag 17, played by William Holden. If you've ever seen that movie, he's kind of like the anti-hero, the one that goes, it's a POW movie, and he's the one that's trying to escape, and he's the smartass, and the one that everybody thinks is the traitor. Turns out he's not the traitor. Spoiler alert, the star of the movie's not the traitor. But also, let's go to the villainous side real quick. I really like Hans Landa, Christoph Waltz character from Inglourious Bastards.
Ah, yeah.
Fantastic character. And big shout out to, what is it, R. Lee Ermey from Full Metal Jacket.
Yes.
Played the drill sergeant. I mean, that's a very iconic character in a war
And I think
film.
he's played that role the rest of his life.
Yes, actually, he's just the same role over and over.
Well, I think he really was an actual...
He was.
veteran,
Yeah, I
so.
believe so. I think that's how he got the gig, and then he just plays that character, even in commercials.
Yeah.
All right, coming up on Pop Culture Philosophers, we'll be talking a little bit about the differences between the World War II war movies and the Vietnam era of war movie films. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, looking for a fresh new adventure to read? How about one starring an original hero during a time where the world itself was near the brink? Then return with us now to the thrilling days of yesteryear with The Grey Ghost, The Shadow That Walks. This new novel by author Nicholas Cara is the story of one man returning home after being injured in battle to find the injustice he had rallied against overseas now infesting the very city he loves. Join our hero, Joseph Bevan, who with the aid from his friends and the amazing powers of the mysterious Spartan cloak, rises above his injuries to stand tall as the champion of justice to the fair city of Capstone. Be thrilled at the action and suspense as our hero battles the villainous Dr. Rosen and the monstrous Mr. Vega, who along with their enigmatic benefactor seek nothing less than the complete destruction of the peaceful free world around them. Little do they know that standing in their way is Joseph Bevan, the shadow that walks, known as the Grey Ghost. This exciting adventure tale is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and anywhere books are sold. Autographed copies are available in short supply at the Deep Comics and Games right here in Huntsville, Alabama. Join the Grey Ghost and his friends on Facebook at www.facebook.com/GreyGhostNovel and join us at www.nicholascara.com.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're going to get real in the Huntsville Attic and get a little emotional, but first, Robbie reached out to the social media.
Oh, yeah. We love the social media, everybody that likes our page, Pop Culture Philosophers on Facebook. We appreciate each fan. So we asked you what your favorite war movies were. Here are some of the good answers we got. We got Mike Finley said, easy, Saving Private Ryan. Jason Frazier said, Star Wars. Will Priest said, Midway, or The Longest Day. Drew Maston said, The Great Escape. Paul Edwards said, We Were Soldiers. And our good friend Thaddeus House, Tony, said, Glory.
Oh, yeah.
A good classic film there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice
Love that
variety, but some good films. Some great films.
Good films. Keep it coming in, and thank you for responding and letting us know what you think.
So we're talking about the different war movies, but I want to know which one made you tear up just a little bit. And you probably try to tell somebody you were just, I was in the theater cutting an onion. No, you were crying.
I was in the theater cutting an onion.
Well, I usually bring
do
vegetables.
that all the time, guys.
Yeah, I bring vegetables into the theater and prep for soups and stuff. But which one? Start with James. Which one got you right in the,
Teary eyes.
It's
Teary eyes, yeah.
pretty easy one, man. Saving Private Ryan. They put so much tearjerker stuff in that movie everywhere. It's like, he's the last brother left.
Yep.
They have to save him, and then everybody else is like, what makes him so important?
It is a crazy.
I'm sad
the
here,
story
too.
is kind of crazy if you're like, we're gonna go all across the Europe looking for this one guy. Like, who would fucking do that? But at least you can grasp the story with that. Like, okay, well, we can understand. Because otherwise, the story is a little absurd.
Yeah, it is.
But a great fucking film.
But that's
Still a great film.
That's what jerks those tears out.
Yeah, it
though.
does. Yeah, it does.
Robbie.
I'm going to agree with him. It's Saving Private Ryan. I tear up every time we get to the end of that movie and Tom Hanks looks at him and goes, earn it.
Yeah.
Earn it. It just, Oh my goodness. That makes me so emotional, and it makes you realize how important each life is.
And then every time they cut back to him standing in the cemetery.
Oh yeah.
And,
And at the very end when his wife goes, "You did. You have." Oh my goodness. That one really gets me right there
Every
in the
time.
teary eyes.
I 100% agree with you guys.
Yeah, so apparently we all
I don't
cried.
have anything different. There's definitely different. There's definitely some
apparently,
others
we
that.
cannot watch that movie together.
Yeah, right? That would just be a big cry fest.
There's some other movies that I've seen that war films that definitely they get you. You know what I'm saying? They get you
Yeah.
teary eyed. But specifically, Saving Private Ryan was probably one that hit closest to home and,
Yeah, it
and
does.
really made me, like uncontrollably weeping.
Yeah.
So,
Kudos to you, Spielberg.
Yeah, great film, especially the end. I mean, it really, really gets to you. Great film. Great
So
film.
we were talking about Saving Private Ryan. We were talking about crying during war movies. You know, we're manly men. Do we cry in movies? Of course, if the movie is good enough to invoke that emotion and that reaction. But we're guys. Are guys allowed to be emotional? Of course we are. Of course we are. But here's the question I want to ask right now.
Especially when there's stuff blowing up.
Yes.
They kind of a counterbalance.
The question I want to ask is, are war movies just for guys? James, what you got?
I would say that definitely in the past they have been gender biased. Because, I mean, the lead guy always gets the girl somehow if there's a woman involved somehow.
Oh, yeah.
And the women characters are very, very flat.
Oh, yeah. Very two-dimensional.
I mean,
It's
you had
basically
some, like I Married a Male War Bride. You have some screwball comedies that have, strong women characters in them, but not many, especially from back in the day.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I pretty much exactly what you say. Like back in the day, absolutely not. I mean, they just weren't thinking about women being a part of the audience. Or they probably just legitimately were like, women wouldn't like these movies. And then later on, it's like they tried to put... And sometimes Hollywood doesn't understand that women like the same kind of stuff men do. Women like war movies, and you don't have to throw a crazy romance into Pearl Harbor to get women to want to watch the movie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go, but look at movies like G.I. Jane, and look at The Hurt Locker, which Catherine Bigelow did.
Yeah.
One of the most notable and critically acclaimed female directors out there today. Made a very, very appealing, mass appealing war movie. I really liked it a lot. John, what do you think?
Hurt Locker was good. I agree. I concur. Yeah, I don't think they're just for men, but there's definitely, especially earlier films where they're obviously that was their target audience, and you've seen that they stepped away from that more and more. And you do have some forced romances. You could say that about a lot of films. Star Wars Episode 2, for example.
Right.
So
That's a war movie with a forced romance.
Yeah, where they feel like they have to shove a weird romance in there that doesn't seem to belong. But for the most part, I
The
think
second Rambo movie.
yeah, I think
The second Rambo movie. Yeah.
I think any good war film, any good film in general, can be enjoyed by everybody as long as it's a good film.
Yeah.
So we're talking about wars. We're talking about tearing up. Which one made you tear up in the laughter? I don't even know. What?
Nice segue.
What made you cry so hard because you were laughing so hard? How's that sound? I don't know.
Okay.
There are war comedies though, and obviously with there's a place for humor. There's a place for humor. If it wasn't for humor, we'd probably all be dead. You know what I'm saying? You got to learn to laugh. So comedies. Is there a war comedy that you like? Should be. Is it good to have a light side to war, and is there a particular war comedy you enjoy, Robbie?
I think it is good to have a light side to war. I think that comedy, stand-up comedians, for instance, are very much philosophers of our generations. I think that you can say a lot about a subject through comedy. You make someone laugh, you open them up, they get a little bit more receptive to the ideas that you're lending out. I think war movies can totally be funny, and I don't think that's wrong. I think it's a good exploration. And I would say some of my favorites would be Stripes, MASH, Dr. Strangelove. Then, of course, Three Kings and Good Morning Vietnam. Those are some good ones, too. But I really like MASH in particular a lot. I think that movie's really cool. I like the documentary style of it. Of course, the TV show was cool, but I love the movie.
Yeah.
And Donald Sutherland is really good in that movie.
Definitely.
And it's got some really good, like, dark comic moments in there, too. Suicide is painless, homie.
Exactly.
Like the song.
Oh, there's a song?
Damn it. What would you say? Say?
Yeah, I definitely have to go. Most of the movies he just listed, especially Three Kings,
Yeah.
because it does, like you were saying, it does both. It has this really outlandish comedy.
Yeah, it's not a straight up comedy. It's a serious film that has some
then,
comedy
like,
in it.
you know, it says some of the most real things about that war that any movie out there said.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, then when there's like, man, let's just help people. You know?
And it's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's
The movie
hilarious.
is funny, too.
Absolutely hilarious.
John, what about you? What are some of your favorites?
I was going to say similar movies. Love Stripes, like you said. Three Kings. Tropic Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
Tropic Thunder is hilarious, especially Robert Downey Jr. And to an extent, and he goes off. Sometimes I don't know, because this particular actor, sometimes I'm enjoying him, and sometimes I'm like, is he just fucking with us? Like the way he goes over the top, and I'm talking about Ben Stiller.
Okay, I was wondering.
And I do love Ben Stiller, don't get me wrong, but his character is
I love in that movie when he just starts going crazy nutso, and he's firing his gun, and he's got his one arm out for no reason. Just, I don't know. It's funny to me.
And isn't that the one with Tom Cruise where he's the crazy like
Yeah.
filmmaker or whatever?
Yeah,
I forgot
yeah.
about that. Like bookends.
I think the movie's a
film.
little long and unbalanced, but overall,
Yeah.
I mean, like, RDJ is really, really fucking funny in it. And I like Ben Stiller. Jack Black's weird in it. And Nick Nolte's pretty cool in that movie.
I forgot he was in that film. Yeah.
When isn't Nick Nolte cool?
48 Hours, Part 2. Another 48 Hours.
Another 48 hours.
Did you really have to? I mean, we were on a high there, and I just brought me down.
All right, so it seems, we were talking a lot about some of the themes earlier, good versus evil. Then we started talking about, but then they started getting into the effects of war on the human psyche. And I think there's a clear distinction in these films. Think about World War II movies. Most of those are straight up black and white, good versus evil. You know what I'm saying? They're very clear cut. And those movies are almost like propaganda films.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, a lot of them were actually propaganda films. At the beginning, you'd see the go buy bonds.
Yes, support the war effort.
Yeah. And to an extent, though, I mean, that was the war effort. Everyone had to put something in. I mean, the war itself, World War II, I mean, it does have a very much good versus evil. I mean, it's not like Vietnam where should we really have been there?
Yeah, it was much easier to sell to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of what the movies were doing. Now, we know years and years later, in hindsight, that a lot of the stuff going on in World War II was not as clear cut as we have been led to believe. We for instance, were kind of already knew we were getting into the war and kind of provoked Japan to attack Pearl Harbor and stuff like that, right? But it was a very easy sell to the public, especially with these films. Film was still a very brand new thing, and people were getting wrapped up in the stories. John, you got anything to add?
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, World War II, even after, because we were not aware of some of the stuff that was happening in Europe when we went to Europe, some of the atrocities of what the Nazis did. So when you look back on there, more than anywhere else, and I think in history, there's a clear good versus evil. I mean, it's allies versus the axis of. They call it the fucking axis of evils. Now, I don't think they call themselves that, but we call them the axis of evil.
Of course, but
It was probably
that's
something in German that sounded way more evil.
But is that not part of the propaganda?
That's part of the propaganda.
It's
but
part
even
of selling it.
But even in hindsight, they were still. But I mean, it's not like Germany. Germany covers this up. They're like, "Oh, this is something we're ashamed of. We don't want to talk about it." It was not a good part of history. It's almost like Star Wars. This is the definitive. These are the good guys and these are the bad guys. When in most wars, it's not clearly defined.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying it was easy to expose to sell that to the public at the time.
Oh yeah, but even afterwards, it's still
I think the reason why
easy to sell.
I think the reason why is because, especially in World War II, the general public hadn't been exposed to the true horrors of war yet. They hadn't gotten photos back from the front lines.
Oh yeah, it's not like you're embedded like you are in the Middle East now, and you can see shit in real time.
And that started really like with Vietnam.
Yeah,
Like that's when Americans actually started seeing, the images and the video from these horrific events. And that's and Vietnam was not clear cut, and even there's just the public was already it was already too well known in the public what war was, I think, at Vietnam, that you couldn't make the propaganda films like you made in the 40s. So what happens in the Vietnam era is because of the increased exposure to the effects of war, the filmmakers, had friends that went to these wars. Filmmakers themselves went to these wars. So it wasn't a clear-cut moral war. And now the filmmakers wanted to explore the effects of war on people. And I think it straight up goes down to the public just not having enough information back then to make, to even think about war like that. They were thinking about good versus evil. I'm not saying anything about World War II, and obviously the Nazis were evil. That's just evil incarnate right there.
Yeah, and they still use them as bad guys in all sorts of movies.
Oh, yeah, Nazis are like, you can kill Nazis, zombies,
yeah, there's
and
Nazi
robots.
zombies, and they're the bad guys in every Indiana Jones film.
Yeah, but, what do you think about, John, a little bit about the Vietnam era, like the post-Vietnam War films and how they switched?
A lot of it had to do, there was the draft, and so I think you got that point of view. There were people that wanted to expose that. These are people that are going over there, don't want to be there. They don't know why they're there. They're young. There's a lot of people going over there, and they wanted to show that, and especially show the atrocities of war and show how horrible this is. So I think there was definitely a different point of view as far as the filmmakers. Definitely. There's a night-and-day difference.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that starts to bring the ambiguity of it all. Like, there's not the exact, as he was saying, then there's not the exact evil. It looks a lot more like you're just attacking the country itself, You get over there, you don't necessarily see other guys in uniforms that you're firing back and forth at you. It's just, guerrilla warfare. It's just farmers with guns, and then there's people who aren't the ones with guns, and you're killing both of them sometimes, and, very muddy.
Yeah.
Very real in a lot of these movies to look at it.
Absolutely. And, there's even now another distinction with Gulf War films. Films about the Afghan War and the wars in Iraq. A lot of good movies have come out of that, and it's once again a different type of war film. Now we're getting into not just what the horrors of war do to someone, but what just being a soldier does to someone. Like being over there for so long and coming back. Like in The Hurt Locker, he can't adjust to like normal life. And the American Sniper has kind of the same type theme. And it's just the way that I think the storytelling is evolving as we are evolving and understanding what war does to the psyche of a soldier, And so we were talking about World War II and Vietnam, and of course the Gulf War movies, which apparently they call them sand movies in Hollywood in the lingo or whatever. But other movies are really good. What about pre-World War II and I stuff? Like, this is not on the rundown. I'm just throwing this out there because we're actually making good time. What about like Revolutionary War, Civil War type movies? I can think of The Patriot, and Glory. That's some good movies.
Right.
What do you guys got?
Like I was saying earlier, Algiers Wales. It's a look at right after the war, but
Yeah.
it's, and some of those do harken to the Algiers Wales. It kind of ends up running a little bit into the Vietnam era, where it's kind of like, yeah, neither one of these guys are really
it's
right.
easy to do that with a Civil War because it's understood that that's brother versus brother.
Yeah.
And as we've gotten more globally conscious, we are now like thinking more of people from other nations as brothers. But of course, there was such a strong sense of nationalism in the 30s and 40s that just didn't really exist during the World War II era. Like it was America and Britain and Russia and Germany, and I don't know. I really like that. Do you know of any there's not a lot of films about like the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, are there? There's much more about Vietnam and World War II. What do you think the reason why for, John? And what do you think about some of those films?
I think World War II is the easier subject matter because you have that definitive good versus evil. So it's just, that's kind of a lazy man's take. You know what I'm saying? It's easier to do that. And on top of that, people do like explosions, and you obviously have World War II. Well, starting in World War I, but World War II specifically, you got submarines and these big bombers. You start to see modern aircraft.
Machine guns.
Yeah, big machine guns. If you watch a Civil War, even a documentary, it's a lot of close combat and not the most exciting weapons. and that does not taken away from
But
the
it's still-
atrocities of Civil War. The
It's
Civil
still
War,
very rich though in
yeah,
character.
but I think that Hollywood likes explosions and big machine guns and stuff like that. Well, you've even got movies. You got a lot of movies that lasers and flying spaceships and shit. War movies.
Yeah.
because people like the big special effects.
yeah, like futuristic war movies and
Yeah,
stuff.
and honestly, the Civil War doesn't have that, and the Revolutionary War doesn't have that, and I think that filmmakers want to capitalize how much money they make, and people want to go see big explosions.
Here's a question I want to ask real quick. Do you think that we as Americans in pop culture glorify World War II and kind of overlook and just think that that was the good war, that was a war worth fighting?
Correct. Yeah, I think so. Definitely.
Like Oliver Stone, for instance, criticizes Saving Private Ryan because he says that goes back and harkens back to the idea that that was a good war, like believing the belief that no war is a good war.
Right.
So, I mean, what would you think about that?
I would say definitely. It all goes back to the propaganda of World War II films. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're someone who's making a World War II movie now, you've seen all these other movies, and you kind of automatically take that for being what was real about it. So, I mean, kind of feeds back onto itself.
John?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we were still attacked. Now, what we did, we may have done some things that led up to that. That may have, but the truth of the matter is, when you look at us getting into other wars, I mean, us
For
being,
instance, in America,
yeah,
the Nazi and the death camps and the Holocaust, that really didn't even come to American consciousness until after the war.
yeah, because we weren't aware of it.
All right, going back to the social media, we got a whole lot more answers from people. Do you guys want to hear them?
Yes.
I have been waiting this whole time for this.
All right, Nathan Huddleston says Lone Survivor, and he himself is a veteran. So I've never seen Lone Survivor, but now I want to check it out. George Rivera says Braveheart. Good pick, good pick. Jeremy Day says Starship Troopers. Brett Chulada says he's going to just say Deer Hunter without thinking too much about it. Justin Goldsmith, good friend of us, says Hamburger Hill.
Oh, Hamburger Hill. I see.
Or Inglorious Bastards. And Rich Partain, good friend over at Yellowhammer Brewery, says Full Metal Jacket or Das Boot. More social media coming up soon. And we'll be right back here with the infamous Pop Culture Philosophers Top 5. Meet Albrecht Drew. He punches ghosts. Often. Right in their goddamn ghost faces. Al's aimless life of getting drunk, starting fights in bars, and living in a shithole apartment goes straight to hell one night. He loses his woman, a hobo steals his last paycheck, and a demonic dwarf Voltron tries to eat him. But when Al punches the unliving crap out of a ghost of a 1970s pimp, things might just start looking up. Paul D. Miller's latest novel, Albrecht Drew, Ghost Puncher, Part 1, OGP, is now available in trade paperback and for digital download at Amazon.com. Albrecht Drew, Ghost Puncher by Paul D. Miller. Check it out.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. And Robbie, I think you have some more people on the old social media there.
Yeah, I do, actually. The hits just keep on coming, everybody. So let's get down to it. Clem Urban says Apocalypse Now, unless he can say The Terminator. Billy Wilburn says First Blood. Bobby Hessler says The Fifth Element. David Weber, good old Webby, says Jarhead. We agree with you. Jed Martin says Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. Kevin Matson says Lord of War. And the best answer of the night, Alicia Mayro says Space Jam.
Ah,
I watched that recently.
That's a good war movie.
Nice
actually.
battle.
Yeah. All right, back to you, John.
I think it's time for the top 5.
Top 5! What we used to call
Top 5.
the meat.
The meat. The rest was the potatoes. This is the meat. So we're talking about the top 5 war films. Not necessarily the best films ever, but our top 5 favorites. Near and dear to us. Whatever reason we identify with the characters, we enjoyed those films much more. I think we're going to be all surprised by some of our choices here tonight. start with number 5, and we're going to go, I think we'll go counterclockwise. We'll start with James.
Oh.
Number 5.
I thought long and hard about this, and my number 5 is Three Kings. I know it's confusing because number 5 is 3.
It's 3, yeah.
But-
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
I would have tried to put that at number 3, but I understand. If it just didn't fit
Then
there.
it'd be like 33.
Great film, though. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
Great
I
film.
mean, it's on the comedy side, but it is up there with some of the greatest of all time.
I think you're hard-pressed to find somebody that didn't enjoy that film. Maybe the person who claimed to have wrote the film and then it was stolen or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I don't think he likes it, but everybody else, I think, enjoys the film. Robbie, you're number 5.
First of all, honorable mention to a Ridley Scott film I really like, though I don't think a lot of people do, Kingdom of Heaven. Religious war. Good theme for a war movie, I think. My number 5, 2000, directed by Jonathan Mostow. U571.
Oh, yes.
I love U571. All 5 of my top 5 have fantastic casts.
I thought you were going to say are all about submarines.
That's got
All
Matthew
have
Mc-
numbers and letters is the
Yeah,
title.
they all have numbers and letters. No, Matthew McConaughey, Bill Paxton, Harvey Keitel, even John Bon Jovi, and even he's awesome in the movie because he gets decapitated like really, really quick.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but it's a really cool movie about a submarine, that goes undercover as a German U-boat, and it's completely historically inaccurate, but it's a very well-crafted film with beautiful, gorgeous music by Richard Marvin, just want to say.
Oh, yes, Richard Marvin. I don't know who that is. I did enjoy that film. My number 5, I'm going to go with something I don't know if some of you have seen or how many listeners have seen this, but if you've not seen this film, it's enjoyable because I enjoyed the armor. I really like the armored division, so I really like tanks. And so Fury, I thought Fury was awesome. If you've not seen Fury, recent film, Brad Pitt. I'm forgetting a bunch of people. There's more people in there. Brad Pitt. What's his... I can't. We'll just edit this
Brad
whole part
Pitt
out.
and a tank.
Shia
Enough said.
LaBeouf, who I'm not a big fan
I have
of.
not seen Fury, but I hear it's really
I'm not a
good.
big fan of him. I've enjoyed him in the film. It's a good film. It's again, it follows the armored tank. It follows a tank through Europe, and Brad Pitt's the leader of that squad, and it's based on World War II. Great film. Worth checking out. Special effects are amazing, and those tanks. The tanks we had over there during World War II were not the best tanks. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they weren't armored well because you had to get a light tank. They were shipping them across the sea, versus the Germans had better tanks, but of course they had the home field advantage. So these weren't great tanks. So it follows them in a Sherman tank, but it's a great film and definitely worth a rental.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Number 4, James.
First Blood.
Good movie.
So there's 2 for okay. So you sided with one of our.
Oh, yeah,
I hate
no,
that. I
First
hate that
Blood.
Billy stole your thunder there.
I know. I kept from mentioning that one all night. So that would be
It is called Rambo: First Blood, correct?
No, it's just called First
Blood.
Is that a Rambo film?
That's why.
Yeah, it's the
Okay,
first Rambo
it's
film.
the Rambo film. Okay.
Yeah, but Rambo 2 is the first one that just had Rambo in the
Yeah,
title.
Rambo First Blood 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's
the first-
odd sounding.
That's
but
the film that we're introduced to Rambo as a character. Correct?
It's First Blood, yeah.
John Rambo. That's
yeah,
his
that's a
name.
great
Yeah.
film about the effects
The
of
effects,
war.
the
yeah.
post effects of war. I mean, these guys are still fighting a war. Now it's between them and home.
That's
not
such a
accepting
good
them.
movie. We did the action movie podcast on the Smile Lorel show, and we were just talking about how good that movie is. It's probably one of the best Stallone films ever. His best
Yeah.
performance, that and Rocky, right? But that movie is so good because it's real, man. And like talk about real war movies, First Blood, right? That's a quote unquote real war movie right there.
Yeah.
I think though, because of the Rambo character, it gets clumped in with the other Rambo films.
Yeah, it does. It's
with
completely
Commando
not, yeah.
and all those stuff.
Yeah, and
When
it's not like
a
that
much
at
better
all.
film. Yeah.
He doesn't even kill anybody in that movie. He just throws a rock at a helicopter. But remember, they drew First Blood, not him.
Robbie, you're number 4.
My number 4, 2002, Ridley Scott. At Black Hawk Down. Fantastic cast again. Josh Hartnett, Eric Bana, Ewan McGregor, Tom Sizemore, Jason Isaacs. Great cast. Beautiful film, brilliant performances, well-crafted, visually stunning, highlighting a very, kind of a little-known battle by today's standards.
Yeah.
Today's
Oh, yeah.
pop, And it has a boldness for a war film. It got a lot of criticism because even though it was very accurate, it was very anti-war in its themes a lot of people picked up on. And it kind of showed America losing. and they were saying the film was unpatriotic. But it's a real event that really happened, and I love the movie, and it's gut-wrenchingly fucking sad, and it's great. I love Black Hawk Down. I'm a big Ridley Scott guy, and I love Black Hawk Down.
I think we all are Ridley Scott fans here.
Ridley Scott's pretty
Absolutely.
If you don't appreciate Ridley Scott, get the fuck out. I'm gonna go with my number 4 is gonna be The Thin Red Line,
Oh, okay.
which recently
That had Michael J. Fox in it?
yeah, that's the one. Recently came out on, or semi-recently, Criterion Blu-ray. So definitely worth picking up on Criterion Blu-ray. Great film. I think it's underrated. It's a long film. I'll give you that. I think if I was the Pacific Theater, obviously, I think since it came out after Saving Private Ryan, people were expecting more Saving Private Ryan instead of a more darker, serious. And again, the Pacific Theater, there's a lot more films in World War II that follow or are based in Europe. So there's not as much focus on the Pacific Theater, but it's a great film and it's worth it. Hell of a cast. Thin Red Line, magnificent film.
Oh, good. Okay. I've never seen that film. But if it's on Criterion, I guess I'll check it out.
Yeah, it deserves to be on Criterion.
Most of them do.
Yeah, most of them earn their spot for the most part.
Yeah, Armageddon's a little odd, but
Is Armageddon really? Yeah, we discussed
I have
this.
it. It's right over there.
What
dude.
the fuck? Well, first off, why do you have that on Criterion?
Some
Who
of them,
wouldn't?
I'll have to say yes. There are definitely times that the Criterion Collection strays or seems weird, but I mean, in general, if it's on Criterion, it's worth watching.
We'll start a new
There's
podcast.
something about it.
Oh, we need to do a Criterion podcast.
When Criterion goes wrong.
Number 3, James.
Not Three Kings.
The Outlaw Josie Wales.
A war film. Tell us why.
Well, because as you're saying, it focuses on what happens after war. I mean, especially when you deal with this conflict that was two halves of one country fighting each other, and then a character who enters into this war only after something horrible is done to him. So it's also a revenge picture, you know. That's why he joins the Confederate army and goes off and fights everybody, because
Yeah.
he wants to find that particular group of Union soldiers to get his revenge.
So just like First Blood, it's about the after effects of war.
Yeah, and it follows immediately after the Civil War. Was this his directorial debut for Eastwood?
I believe
I thought
it was.
We'll
I
have to
think
look
so,
that up.
actually. Yeah, I got to think about that. But I think so. It might be.
Yeah, I mean, and it just has some really awesome moments in it. Yeah, I mean, you know, the character's seen so much carnage and everything in war that, like, there's this one scene where he kills someone, and the other character's like, "So are we gonna bury him?" He's like, "Buzzards got to eat the same as worms," is his response, and then he spits his chaw onto the guy's forehead.
Yeah, it's cold, man.
I mean, he's just like completely desensitized,
Yeah.
and you see him come back to being very human and everything by the end of the picture.
Your number 3, Robbie?
I'm going to go with 2008's Best Picture winner by Catherine Bigelow, The Hurt Locker. Love this film. I've heard from a lot of friends that served over in the in the Iraq War or the Afghan War. I've heard from a lot of people that I know personally and read a lot of stuff online and seen a lot of stuff in documentaries and stuff, that the movie itself is kind of inaccurate and how EOD guys actually operate and work. But all that aside, because all war movies are fictionalized. I mean, it's all hyper-fictionalized, you know?
Correct.
But aside from that, it's actually a brilliantly directed film. It's so suspenseful. It's like a Hitchcock war film in a way. Like, it really kept me on the edge of my seat. And I love that it didn't video game war. It didn't make war seem like a point-and-shoot video game, you know, like Call of Duty or something. It made it seem a little bit more ambiguous, a little bit more of how is war fought today. It's way different than we think war was fought back in the day in war movies. War is completely different today, and I love that it dealt with the psychology of it. Like, these guys are almost more comfortable being at war than being at home because it's such a hyper, you know, real existence full of adrenaline and just like, it's crazy when American life is boring. And you almost are itching to go back to war. And I really like the movie because of that. Best Picture winner, and I think it deserves it, man. It's absolutely just perfectly done. All the way around, in my opinion.
Now, is that Jeremy Renner, right? Is the
Oh,
main?
yeah. Yes. And Anthony Mackie's in it. It's absolutely
Yeah,
good.
I
If you
think
haven't
that's
seen
the
it,
first
I check
film
it out.
where I've seen Jeremy Renner in the past in films, but not cognizant of who he was. And that was the first movie where I saw him, and I was like, "Who is this guy? I gotta look this guy up."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh shit, he was in so and so." You know, I had to go back and look, and because he wasn't memorable in some roles. No offense.
Yeah.
Because he was overshadowed by some other actors. But in this particular film, I mean, he got my attention for sure. Did a
Guy
good
Pearce
job.
is in it in a very fucked up scene, if you remember that one. So
I'm going to go my number 3, appropriately so, until we edit the show, Three Kings. That was my number 3. Coincidentally, it's number 3. I didn't lay it out like that. It just ended up in number 3. But I love Three Kings. We won't bring it up again. Or at least we don't have to go back through what it's about. But great film, great cast. Love the film. So number 2, James.
Jarhead.
Jarhead, nice pick.
I just really love the, how it really puts the waiting into war.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're there, and are you doing anything? Or are you just sitting at camp? Do you have a real target? Are you going to get there and then your target's going to be canceled? You're going to spend like 2 days getting out to a point, and then right before you're going to pull the trigger, they just go in and bomb it anyway. Or, they call it off altogether.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
grueling day. The grueling day of just waiting around. It's doing your orders, getting geared up, and just waiting. Especially like those snipers.
Yeah, they're
They're
just,
just
stuck
sitting
there.
out there for hours and hours and hours. Those snipers and their spotters, dude. That's crazy, man. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal, he's, with the exception of Donnie Darko, up until Jarhead, there was nothing in any movie I saw that I was like, oh, I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I just thought, oh, well, maybe that was his peak and then I saw Jarhead, and I'm like, you know what? I underrated Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor. You're number 3, Robbie.
I say we go with number 2.
Are we on number 2 already? Yeah. Oh, shit. You're number 2, Robbie.
My number 2 is 1998. Steven Spielberg, Saving Private Ryan. I love it. Was trying to show the brutality of war in World War II, which was often ignored in World War II movies. You get a lot of Vietnam movies where you see a lot of like just limbs flying around, people being blown up, but not in a sensational like horror movie cheer it on kind of way, but in a, oh my God, this is disturbing. I can't believe we put men in this position, men and women in this position. I can't believe it. I love that Spielberg did that to a World War II film.
My number 2, which happened to be on someone else's list, but Black Hawk Down.
Great film.
Love Black Hawk Down. You're right. Gritty, realistic, great cast, great director. Big Ridley Scott fan, so I don't know how I could do a top 5 without having a Ridley Scott film, really in any genre. But Black Hawk Down, my number 2. If you like and share this episode, we're giving away a Blu-ray about a film we've talked about tonight that we all enjoy. It may not have made all our top 5s, but we all say I'm positive we all enjoyed it. It's a great film.
Yeah.
And that's The Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
On Blu-ray. So you just have to like and share this episode you're listening to right now. I mean, you're already listening to us. Go ahead and just click those 2 buttons, and you could be entered to win The Hurt Locker on Blu-ray. So we're doing our top 5, and we're about to get to the number 1. So as a refresher, let's go back over our top 5. So James' number 5 was Three Kings. His number 4 was First Blood. His number 3 was Outlaw Josie Wales. His number 2 was Jarhead. What is your number 1?
Bridge over the River Kwai.
Ooh.
Now, this is the sequel to the Bridges of Madison County, correct?
That was made years before somehow.
Yeah.
Bridges of Madison County is the prequel.
Oh,
It's a prequel.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
No, I mean it's a great World War II POW movie, and it has the great Sir Alec Guinness in it.
The only hope.
Yes. And it goes down to like when people just want to be their normal self to keep things normal for them, even if they're a prisoner of war. Because in the movie he's they're building the bridge for the train, and even though he's doing it as a prisoner, and doesn't really want to, he wants to do it the best and most efficient way he can. And just the the struggle between him and the other character about, but hey, dude, we finished this. We're hurting the war effort. We have to sabotage it.
Robbie, your number 5 was U-571. Your number 4 was Black Hawk Down. Your number 3 was Hurt Locker. Number 2 was Saving Private Ryan. What would you say was your number 1 pick?
My number 1 pick is also a POW film. It is the 1953 classic by the legendary Billy Wilder, Stalag 17. Love that movie. It's about these soldiers in a German POW camp during World War II. William Holden's the main actor. I talked about him earlier. He played Sergeant Sefton, good anti-hero. But it basically, they're trying to escape this POW camp, right? And these 2 guys at the very beginning of the movie are leaving, and they get shot on sight. Like, they knew that they were going to be escaping at that time. So all of a sudden, they think that there's a traitor in their midst. There's a mole. And so it's a big whodunit. But it really is very funny, but it's very real. And it gets very emotional and very poignant at times. And it's very funny. But it spawned the hit series Hogan's Heroes. Hogan's Heroes is a spinoff of Stalag 17. I don't think it's super popular of a film today. I encourage everybody to check it out. Stalag 17 by Billy Wilder. Billy Wilder is a fantastic director. Did such classics like Some Like It Hot, Sunset Boulevard, Double Indemnity, and The Apartment.
All right. Before I get to my number 1, I'm going to do my number 5 was Fury. Again, go see it if you haven't seen this. Number 4, The Thin Red Line. Number 3, Three Kings. Number 2, Black Hawk Down. My number 1, which has graced most people's number 5 and the social media, Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah. It seemed like the winner on social media.
Yeah. It's a popular film. It as much as I had read about World War II, watched World War II films, when I saw that in the theater and when they hit the beach, and just how horrific it was, I guess until that point, I didn't quite understand how fucking horrific it was. And Spielberg does not sugarcoat when they hit the beach. And there was I forget what those are called, that are blocking the ships from docking. Those metal bars, whatever they're put there, and the Germans with their machine guns. I mean, that is
50
much.
cal will,
There are certainly things that were altered for the film, but as far as that goes, that was very spot on. I hear for how they landed on the beach and how horrific that really was in real life. So that hit me right there, and I still enjoy that film. It's a great film. Also available on Blu-ray. It's definitely worth a purchase.
Let's talk a little bit before we leave, gentlemen, here in the Huntsville Attic. We like to get a little bit into what the meaning of things are. So let's get into a very serious question, a very unserious podcast. Is war necessary? James?
Ideally, no. But of course, when we can't stop someone from aggressing us, or anybody cannot stop someone from aggressing them, you end up with war. I mean, it's a sad, very sad truth that war will exist for quite some time.
John?
Unfortunately, I think it's impossible to avoid. I think conflicts, there's always going to be conflict. And even if you try to be passive and try to be social and try to avoid, try to talk things through, you're going to, again, like James said, you're going to have aggressors. Eventually someone's going to have to rise up, and there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be war. Unfortunately, even you look at even the best times when we're not in conflict, we're stockpiling. Every country is stockpiling, preparing for war because it's inevitable. And look how much, I won't say that some certain countries, I'm not going to throw the U.S. out there, but certain countries spend maybe too much on that and not enough on education, etc. Won't get into that. But but unfortunately, war is inevitable. And so you have to allocate those funds and you have to allocate the resources for it. I think Machiavelli said it best. There's no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others.
Nice quote. Nice quote. I believe that destruction is a necessary force of creation. I believe that you cannot progress without first tearing down that which came first. Okay? I believe that's the same for society. It works when you go to the gym. You're tearing your muscles up in order to rebuild them better and stronger. You know, society works the same way. I believe in that destructive force being a necessary thing for the essence and process of creation. I believe that happens naturally. Now, I believe at some point war was necessary to our society. You know, but basically war is all down to land, religion, politics. If we were done with those concepts,
Oil, so possessions.
Yeah.
Besides land,
if we were
right?
done with the concept of possession, we would be done with the concept of war. Maybe. I'm just trying to say it was necessary at some point, possibly, for the advancement of society. In fact, we make more breakthroughs during times of war than ever. But if we dedicated those scientists to doing that when we didn't need it for war, they would still make those progresses in science and education, right? But I think we have evolved, or at least I would like to hope that we are at least very close to evolving to the point where possession and need is no longer an issue, and then war would no longer be an issue. I think scientifically, creatively, I think we're there. I think if we could just back down and, not to sound cliche, but work together, I think humanity is creative and smart enough to create a world where war is not a necessary evil. Anyway, I had a lot of fun here tonight. James, thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. John, thank you for having me here in my house.
I always enjoy having you in your own house.
Whoa.
Wait, that sounded kind of sexual.
I hope they join us next time for our 6th exciting episode, Star Wars. Oh my goodness, we're building up to the Force Awakens.
Yeah, just another. We go from one war podcast to another war podcast.
Yep, Star Wars. So Force Awakens is coming out. We're going to be dissecting the mythology of Star Wars, the chronology of Star Wars, and of course we're doing the PCP movie nights, watching all those Star Wars movies. We had to sit through episode 2, so I hope you sit through the YouTube videos. It's very small in comparison, right, John?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're looking forward to it, right, John?
I'm excited.
All right. So thanks for rocking with us, and we'll catch you next time.
Good night,
Same
everybody.
PCP channel, same piece. Not really a time, and we don't really have a chat. Good night.